Oh, this is funny. Jill and I are here. Welcome. Blessings. We have not decided who is going to drive today
Oh yeah,
because
we
Jill and
didn't.
Jill and I do not discuss ahead of time what we're going to be talking about or what is going to happen on these conversations. So, just so you know, we are live, like really live here. So, welcome. Welcome to episode 2 of this new podcast format that Jill and I have opened our hearts and our minds and our access to hopefully offer better solutions to the way we live here, how we do things, how we feel, challenging what does not work, and hopefully opening up new possibilities for how things can work better. So, hi, Joe.
Hi, good to see you.
Good to see you. Good to see
I
everybody.
also want I want to say thank you to everybody that hit like and commented on episode number one. Janet, I was so pleasantly surprised by the response that we got by my audience that didn't know you loves you. I heard nothing but like, oh my gosh, Janice, just really positive things about the synergy between the two of us, and they really enjoyed the conversation and the dialogue. I actually had one longtime community member say, Jill, I've heard you talk about this idea that Earth is not a school. I heard you talk about it before, but I received it in a
Mm,
completely fresh way. And
mm,
now I see more clearly, literally the downsides to living as if Earth is a school. And obviously, the fact it was a conversation, the fact that you were sharing your concepts of it, maybe I was sharing it in a new way. There's something that makes maybe a more challenging idea more um, welcoming when it's in the form of a conversation versus, I want to say, a monologue. So I'm grateful for that.
Yeah, me too. And thank you, everybody. I too appreciated the comments and the feedback was very positive. And I I'm really excited about this format of peer conversation,
Mhm.
um, community building, I will even say. And I feel even because we're all energetically connected, to anybody that's ever going to listen to this, that co-creative way of inviting everybody in as we have this conversation. So I really appreciate that. And yeah, it's good. It's good. It's good to live how we want to live and be how we want to live. And yeah, it's fun too, I will have to say. Yeah.
Oh, fun. I'm excited for whatever we decide to talk about today.
Me too. There was one comment I just wanted to comment on, and it was on Jill's YouTube feed. And it was because I think this is important,
Mhm.
especially with how the world is operating today. And Jill, I've heard Jill talk about this many times, and the way she says it is just really brilliant, and I can feel it from her. And it's about not letting things bother me, when they're messy. And I just wanted to put an exclamation point on that because there's so much going on in our world today.
Mm,
And we are so, I want to say, dimensionally capable,
mm,
right? And that's changing. We are more dimensionally capable than we were yesterday. And that's whether we know it or not, because there is this evolutionary process happening. And a lot of us aren't as conscious of it, and we don't necessarily need to be.
mhm.
But I just like, so we can be present to messy situations, to challenging things happening in the outer world and still hold our light. And so I just wanted to, like I said, exclamation point that.
That's well said. Um, so we are more than our experience. We are more than the times in which we live. We are an experiencer and a creator amidst
Mhm.
our time and our place and our environment and whatever's going on. And it is so easy as humans to let that outer experience or the what feels like the time that we're in be bigger than it needs to be in terms of its influence and its effect, where we can lose ourselves to an experience that the world is going through or that you're personally going through. And then we really lose our self authority over what do you want to be in that, whether it's a medical experience, a political climate, an election year, whatever the case may. This will come out post election day, in terms of the public feed, but it will go to our newsletters before the US election for those of you that are in the US. But it's just so easy to lose sight of we're not being operated by those things. We are the operator of ourselves amidst those things going on. And that alone is kind of a sigh of relief, I think, for a lot of people because it's so easy to forget those that balance of power in a way.
Yes, and I one kind of viewpoint on that is we as humans reside within our consciousness, not
Mm,
the other way around,
mm,
right? And that can be so powerful in terms of, oh, I'm really okay here because my consciousness, my higher levels, my source of self, whatever word you want to use, I'm okay. And I'm even better than okay. Like I'm really
yeah.
doing better than I think I'm doing most
Oh,
days.
definitely. And I felt huge resets in the midst of, like, physical challenges, medical challenges. There have been so many times when I'm just like, "Wait, like, what's happening? A torn retina? Like, emergency eye surgery? Like, what?" You know what I mean? And you can start to feel like you're not in control of yourself anymore because you're giving control again to those situations or that medical experience or whatever the case may be. And then, okay, what do I wanna be
Mhm.
amidst having an unexpected torn retina in my left eye? You know what I mean? Just they seem so huge, and when you recite yourself, "What do I want to be amidst this?" And that this can be anything. You're sitting on a whole different platform of options and choices and freedom, and that's
Mm,
so valuable.
it is.
Mm,
Well, something's happening because my crown chakra's itching.
love that. That's so good.
Good. Okay. So, what do we want to talk about today?
Mhm,
Prior, when we were discussing this format, we wondered if we were going to put something out there for kind of election support, or we
mm,
really could term that anything in the exterior world that's pretty big and can be, difficult to accept or be present to. And I
mhm,
wonder, I mean, kind of as an aside on this, you and I have touched in our conversations about anger, and I can add frustration and other kind of emotional responses. And, whether
mm,
that's spiritual or not, you know? And so I don't
mhm,
know, I'll throw that out there and see if that's something we want to do today. Because regardless of who gets elected in the United States, and I understand not everybody resides in the United States, but we do
mhm,
have an influence on the rest of the world that regardless of who gets elected, there's going to be stuff and responses to it. Um, People have opinions about things, very strong ones, many people. So, what do you think? Do you want to go there, or do you have something else on your heart?
I'm flexible about where we go. I'm excited for all the different topics that we can cover. So that does feel relevant. I recognize that there's a shelf life to it, but that doesn't mean it's not really helpful, especially to those of you that are signed up for the newsletter that will get this before the date of the US election. And I agree with you that even those outside the US, I've done enough world travel and interacted enough with the non-US community members that even those outside the US, they're very much paying attention to what happens with our election, and it can be just as relevant for them. So it's still good.
Yeah, I think so. And it does apply even post this period. I mean, I think we're in for some pretty intense experiences here on our planet,
Mm,
at least through next year, probably. We don't know
mm,
where it's going to go out in my view and my lens, but the reactionary nature when somebody does something that I very vehemently really disagree with,
mm,
right?
mhm,
You know, what happens and what do I do?
mhm.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel
Yeah,
like we
no,
just
I'm good with this topic. Yeah, I feel like it's really useful. I'll probably follow your lead in terms of where we go with it, if that's okay.
yeah.
Because there are so many possibilities for where we go. But do you have a sense of
Well,
where to start?
so let's just first talk about I think this is important enough to talk about is anger spiritual? Like, am
Mm,
I not spiritual because I
mm,
am effing pissed off,
mm,
right? And that and I want to say pissed off, but we also it's the same thing of whenever I feel threatened in some way
mm,
that I have a big response to it. And we talked a little bit about identity last time. And if I am identified and my belief system supports that we should be a certain way on this planet,
mhm,
and somebody says that they're not going to do those things,
mhm.
holy cow, what do I do with myself and how do I handle that?
Yeah,
Am I
yeah.
spiritual? Is it okay?
Mhm.
How do I manage? What do I do?
I remember experimenting with this idea that if you are more evolved as a human and if you're more advanced as a spiritual being having a human experience, then you would be almost transcendent of anger
Mm.
and almost transcendent of a lot or all of human emotions other than experiencing bliss and a sense of oneness with, the universe or source. And I remember trying out that philosophy and realizing that for me, and again, we talked about this in episode number one, to me, the best test of a belief system and its usability and realness is taking it out to its logical conclusion, right? So the logical conclusion of that philosophy is that you could be neutral about some of the worst things that can happen in this reality. And I'm not going to list them because everyone can easily come up with, are you really okay with that, and that? Really? Can you just be all zen and be like, "Yep, I have no emotional response to that." I decided I can't authentically, but I tried. And I decided it was not real for me to not get angry and not be upset about some of the things in this world that really, really bother me and will always bother me. So when I started to play with that, because I knew I had at that point already spiritual giftedness and things like that that are supposedly a sign of an advanced human, et cetera. And yet, what do I do with the fact that I will probably always, it's more authentic that I will always be angry or upset about certain things that happen in this world? How am I going to reconcile those two? And immediately I felt the energy of Jesus come in and just go, "You think I didn't get angry?" And then I had in my like kind of offer it in my heart. Do you remember when I that was true that I threw up the tables? I threw over the tables. I was throwing them up in the air as much as I could as my in my body size. He was in it, Jesus was explaining this that I got furious that day in the temple when there was a complete misuse of the temple space and what was happening there by these, sanctioned people within the Jewish faith. I was furious. And I was like, okay, so if you can get angry, then I guess it's okay. I guess it's okay that the rest of us get angry. And I also felt that some people just don't get angry, and that's okay. But for those of us that do, trying to put a lid on that or pretend that's not real isn't authentic and it's out of integrity. So, for those of us that do have the ability to just get really, really angry with some of the unrighteousness in this world, giving yourself space that yes, you can be a very evolved, very advanced, very expanded spiritual being in this reality and include elements of anger and include even fiery anger.
Mhm.
So number one, that part's okay. And then number two, if it is like a righteous anger, why are you angry? Because your reason for anger is probably quickly identifying something that you absolutely love and value and cherish that is being disrespected or ignored in this by another person or a situation. And that's godly.
Yeah,
Yeah, tell me how
definitely.
you feel about that, Janet.
Yeah, Anger, wow, to deny anything about how I feel does
Mm,
create dis-ease, and I could give you 1,000 examples about that in my life and others. So I have accepted that. And so to not pretend, again, we talked about this in episode 1, that, something that's true is not true, right? So, absolutely, and there's a level of honesty about that and that authenticity and integrity, absolutely. And it is amazing to me that some people don't get angry. I happen to, and in this recent kind of, process I've been in, I have had fury.
mm,
And there is such passion in that. Anger is energy. It's energy,
mm,
and
mm,
it doesn't have to be judged. And I guess that kind of goes back to the first thing, right? Like nothing has to be judged here. And I remember, gosh, this was a long time ago, like 30 plus years ago. This was before I even acknowledged or was able to be present to my anger. And one day I was living in Chicago at the time. This is kind of a funny story to me now. At the time, it wasn't quite so funny. And I was living right along the lake in Chicago. And when I went and I gathered every single stick I could find, and there was a big rock there, and I took every single stick and I just pounded it over that rock. And I'm grateful. I mean, I appreciate rocks. I appreciate sticks. I appreciate Guy. I appreciate that all that was there for me on that day, right next to this big body of water. And I cannot believe how cathartic it was.
mm,
I had been missing out on a big level of experience here. And I had so much backlog of unacknowledged feelings and experience that I just wanted to get in a padded room and let it all out.
mm,
And I realized I was denying part of my humanity. Like, why would we have feelings and emotions, you know, if we weren't supposed to like have them?
mhm.
you know, like, does that make any sense?
I totally agree. And there is something really from your expertise in the healing elements of trauma, et cetera, that you've assisted so many with. I
Mhm.
can only imagine what a repressed anger about something that is so undeniably angering, right, is not healthy. It's not healthy for the body. It's not, I don't even think it's healthy for us soulfully, right? I can easily imagine our soulfulness just going, wow, I would be furious if my, child was just, stolen from me and murdered by somebody that was just acting thoughtlessly in a moment. How can they not be angry about this? How are they pretending that God wanted this to happen? Or that,
Right.
well, I guess it's okay. God took my child from me. How is that? How is that real? You know what I mean? Um, so the giving ourselves permission to have access to whatever emotions you're having gives you more healthy responses that are self-loving and loving of others that are not repressive and not suppressive. So I just that's so real and everybody's going to be different. My anger is more like a words, like inner debate, like inner dialogue of, oh, it's so maddening. I'm just furious thinking about that, right? Mine isn't like, oh, I want to hit something. Mine might be I need to scream, but it's normally not at a person. I just need to like emote it, get it out. Um, but I'll give some examples later. But that's just, I just feel like there's hopefully the audience is feeling a kind of a sigh of relief
Mm.
if they have felt that sort of like, yeah, there's things I've been angry about that I wasn't giving myself permission to be angry about because I thought that was unevolved or I thought that was out of out of alliance with my soulfulness or that God wouldn't be angry about this. What if God is angry with you that something ridiculous or thoughtless or completely unnecessary and wrong happened?
Yeah. And I would. I like your word hypothesize, right? I will hypothesize that that being able to, and this is that concept of dimensional capacity that I talked about, I
Mm.
would hypothesize that it is evidence of a highly evolved soul to hold a capacity of anger, fury, and not take it out on other people.
Oh, I love that. I completely agree. Yes.
I mean, if you haven't tried that, try it. I can be
Mhm,
furious and be as
mhm.
still as that it looks like I'm meditating. Now, people that are sensitive energetically might see other things happening. If you have that level of vision, they might see me recreating realities in places because that's what happens. And that's the
Mm,
potential that can happen with that level of energetic potency, right?
mhm,
But when we can hold that as these evolved beings, really, and everybody has this capacity, it's wired into us, right? We are pre-programmed to be able to have experience here. And that's one of the things that I'm hoping that Jill and I help bring out in people,
mhm,
that you can find your greater capacity for experience here. Meaning you can be pissed as H, right? And just hold that and see what happens internally and just be present to that. Now, does that look like neutrality? I mean, I presence is a very powerful, that stillness, that presence. I am
mhm,
there often because that's how I am able to be in the creator realms and be the full creator being I am. And that does not mean I might not be really angry in that place.
mhm. And anger doesn't have to be at a certain person.
Mhm.
Angry can be at a situation. I'm
Yeah.
angry that someone ran a red light and smashed into me, and I'm glad I'm okay, but what a pain in the butt. Now I've got to get my car fixed. Now I've got insurance claims to file. Now I've got this. Now I've got that. This is not what I needed today. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So anger at a situation without a specific person even to blame, just this sucks that this happened. Missing a flight based on a mechanical problem, right? And the whole trip is altered by one mechanical issue that ended up, missing connections, whatever. There are so many reasons to be angry and to get angry in this reality. But what I found is that you don't have to stay there. The more
Mhm.
you let the anger be real to you, if it is real to you, the more readily you can notice that that's not the only thing you are. I think some people are afraid of anger because they feel like it will be the only thing they are. But I love this metaphor I like to use of books on a bookshelf, right? They're sitting all on their spines. If you're angry, you're angry. If you're still optimistic about something positive happening next, it's right there. If you're still overall looking and able to find the blessings in the situation or feeling gratitude or whatever that is, it's confusing, but it's more real that they're all sitting right next to each other, right?
Mhm.
So anger can be one book on the bookshelf that you're acknowledging now, and that would be my hope after this conversation for people is they're giving themselves more permission to look even at their past at moments where they have been angry, but they didn't give themselves permission to feel it. I promise you it will not overwhelm you because now you're letting it have a healthy outlet amidst everything else you are, which
Mhm.
is not angry,
Mhm.
right? I
Yeah.
would venture to say that some people that have repressed anger are more likely to have temper tantrums, subconsciously kind of taking it out in other situations that are completely unrelated to the anger because it's just giving these little geysers of like, okay, I feel a little bit permission to be angry here because somebody disappointed me in this way, but it really has nothing to do with that. It's just this big geyser looking for little geysers where you're giving yourself permission to be disappointed in somebody.
Yeah, it reminds me too, and this is what you're talking about, a different way of looking at it, is that our emotions are meant to pass through,
Mm.
you know? And so when I try to control that stops the flow and that energy has to go somewhere. And that's why it causes dis-ease because our bodies generally are the ones that receive that,
Mhm.
right? And it can get stuck. So, and I just wanted to say too, I suspect a lot of people will be overwhelmed by feeling anger, and it gives that out of control feeling. And that is not bad.
Mm,
You're really not in control in the lower mind sort of way that we
mm,
think we are, and we have found
mhm.
security in that.
Yeah.
So that's where, we look at the whole bookshelf, the whole entirety of it, and know that we're here, we reside within our consciousness. So it's okay to have that out of control feeling with emotions because,
Mhm.
and that kind of brings up too, is it now based or is it the stuff that did get stuck in my body or my field? And, those are the things I know from my personal experience. I stuffed a lot of sensations and emotions
Mm,
because I did not have the capacity when I was younger and even in different incarnational existences to process that stuff. And then survival becomes more important. So,
mm,
especially in really dangerous situations, which I have been in
mm,
lots of different situations. So, that recognition itself is very helpful because especially the things that are not kind of in real time and even
mhm,
stuff that, I got hit by a car and it brings up some old situation, like we can be appropriate and give yourself time to let that flow through. And that does open up that healing capabilities. We are designed as humans to self-heal. That's how we're designed. And there's been a lot of things in the way of that. And so the more that we kind of get current and allow ourselves more access to the godliness in our cellular structure, even
mm.
better time we're going to have here. I
So
guarantee.
big.
Huge.
I wonder if it would be helpful to people that are sensing that maybe they do have repressed anger about something, if they do get out something to take notes on, even if it's their a digital device or an actual piece of paper, just it's like an invitation. I'm allowing myself now to notice, may not even be feel,
Mm,
just starting with notice. And noticing that I have anger or
mm,
had anger
mhm,
about maybe it's a person or a situation or an experience, and just let that just be written down. Maybe a person's name, like I said, or a situation or an age, whatever comes to you. Of I'm noticing I probably have anger about this. Maybe let the list just go as long as you need it to, and just let that come out of you. Let it be almost documented for your heart to address. You don't have to do anything with it after that point, but you could. You could let yourself, like, why were you angry? Was it
mm,
because you wish it wouldn't have happened? That's totally okay.
yeah.
Is it because you wish somebody else wouldn't have let you down? Are you mad at yourself about a situation? What is it? Just let yourself go to that next step and let yourself feel whatever you feel about it. Let yourself possibly be sad in addition to anger. Let yourself be relieved of acknowledging the anger that's there. You may
Yeah.
feel numb for a minute in that process. There might be a numbness. Go
Yes.
ahead, Janet. I feel like you have more to add to this.
Yes, a lot of times anger is initiated because we're threatened in some way. Our security is threatened.
Mm,
Our relationships are threatened.
mm,
Our financial situation is threatened. Our loved ones are threatened. And we can be afraid, right? That generates a level of fear that can generate fury
mm,
because sometimes it is life or death, right?
mm,
The other thing I think that's a great idea for people to write it down. And the other thing, as we're sort of gathered in this, I'll call it a sacred space, right? I would love to just have everybody like us take a moment and to create a container of our expanded consciousness,
Mm,
and just to see that that list or that anger or any sort of emotion is within that. And we know how to transcend and alchemize. Oh, I can just start feeling. Can you feel the emotions? Everybody's just like,
mhm,
wow. So just kind of allow yourself to be in that heart-centered space, right? However you connect to your godliness, your source, your divinity, whatever word you want to use. And I want to say even cellularly to
mm.
connect to that and to feel that outwardly so that you exist within it and your emotions exist within it. So it's like sitting in a big, giant hug with compassion and reverence and such love. It's like whatever caused that anger, it's like, no, we hear you, we see you. You were no less important because that thing happened.
Mm.
You're valued in all of creation for who you are, and you're a necessary part of the whole. And nothing can change that ever.
I want to add to this that anyone that's angry at God, right? Just like, God let me down and I'm pissed off about it, right? Put that on the list too. Like,
Yeah.
please do. God can handle it. I promise you. Your godliness can handle it too, as an element of the source energy.
Yeah.
That's so important to address that, right? A loved one that you're angry at is it's sometimes very confusing to have someone that you love so much that you are absolutely furious with.
Mhm.
I've worked with parents that have lost children to um, ending their own lives, to accidental overdoses, and there's an unrecognized anger there that is just really confusing.
Yes. It's not
But in
wrong.
no, it's not wrong. It's very real, and it's dishonest to pretend that there's not anger. And the really fascinating part that I know I've observed and personally experienced, and I'm going to speak for you, Janet, and correct me if I'm wrong. It's not until you notice and let the realness of that anger be present within you, you have to do that before you'll let your source energy love be there for that anger. So you it's a precursor to say, I'm furious about this. I can't believe this happened. God, how could you let that happen? Or loved one, how could you I mean, how could you do that? Like I I'm so mad at you for doing this or being so thoughtless or whatever. When you let that part be real, then like those bookshelves that we talked about, right next to that book is endless compassion, endless love for that person, for that situation. And by addressing that anger, you let that love in to whatever is angering.
Absolutely. It's that level.
Magical.
It is. That's how we allow the magic to happen. It's that awareness
Mm.
and really a level of acceptance. It doesn't mean I agree with it. It doesn't mean it was right.
You're not saying it's okay. You're not pretending it's okay.
Or not.
Mhm.
But that completely opens the doorway. Well, it feels like we just got started, but we're about 45 minutes in.
Are
So
we really?
did
I
that
love
happen? I think we were time
that.
warping
Well, we
here.
started late though. Remember, I got us started late. So it's probably by the time we started about 32 minutes in, but it still feels good. Um, let's see what else we want to add to this super important topic. I just want to, I guess I'll go first on this part, Janet, if that's okay.
Please.
This one may take a bit. For those that are very experienced in your spiritual journey, it may take a while to get past the repression of
Mhm.
anger that you might have been experiencing. Like we were talking about, it is so common in most spiritual communities, and there are many spiritual teachers that I know, and I know that you know, that pretend they don't get angry about stuff. And again, I feel like we all have different versions of anger. Some are just, like a hothead kind of angry. Others are like you wouldn't even, if unless you really knew someone, you wouldn't even know that they're having a form of anger amidst something that is just they didn't want, is happening, whatever. But to pretend there's no anger in this reality and to be alive and human in this reality, to me, just feels so repressed and so false, so out of integrity. So it may take a bit for some of you may 2 days after listening to this go, yeah, I didn't think I had anything, but yeah, actually I do. Now I acknowledge that I am so pissed that, my parent did this or someone let me down in this way. And you're right. I'm pissed about it. And I never let myself feel that. Because I thought it wasn't spiritual. And now you're basically giving me permission to be real that I am actually, there's a part of me that is pissed about this.
Mm.
Good. That's a breakthrough,
Yes.
and it may be
Yes.
delayed.
Yes, I'll say personally from my experience, there might be an anger period, and I will say that the universe conspires to bring that out for us to let it go. So my
Mm,
self-awareness sometimes it's like, oh, kind of like good one. Like now I'm really pissed. Like everything
mm,
just pisses me off. And I was like, oh, I'm going through the anger stage, aren't I? And I really honor that. Like I don't fight with that. And so if I'm one that has pretended like I hasn't haven't had any anger, that could last as long as it needs to. And it's kind of a test of faith on some level. And that's okay too.
mhm,
But if I really want that expanded experience here and really to have the full on human experience, like creativity increases
mhm,
exponentially when we allow ourselves
mm,
access to what that anger is holding in place. So you want to fly? You want to really
mm,
like, you know, do what you can here and fulfill your
mhm,
potential in ways that you can't even believe. Like, I would highly suggest this and give yourself permission and just see what happens, and whether it takes a day or an hour, or maybe you're pissed already.
mm,
Bless you. Like, bless you. Thank you. Thank you for being
and
real.
that's good.
Yeah. Yeah, go ahead.
If at any point, any of you that are listening or watching to this are in the midst of that anger and you feel like you're losing yourself to the anger,
Mm,
I would just encourage you to, I guess one method would be to put one hand on your heart and have your other hand open, like an open up-faced palm. Where is my love next to this?
mm,
And just take a breath.
mm,
And then you're inviting in the love that you are, the love that your source energy is, right alongside whatever anger you're feeling.
mm,
Okay. And you may need that set adjustment to have them both kind of running next to each other versus only having one running. If you have a lot of repressed anger, don't be surprised if you do need to go into a bathroom and close the door and scream, just like, or, warn your loved ones. I have something I'm really letting myself feel angry about, and I'm going to go in the garage and I'm going to let out a yell and scream. Don't be alarmed. I'm just going to experiment with letting this out because I'm trying a new method of being me. It's okay. It's totally okay. Do whatever you need to do to feel in control of yourself and in control of your ability to let yourself feel angry, perhaps in a way that you've never have before or haven't in a long, long time.
Mhm.
Alongside that, like, Janet, you were saying something very important earlier when you said you're letting the emotions flow through you, and I agree, and then you also said letting go of, and I love that because we are letting ourselves be in it, which can also be said flow through us, and then letting go of it. The
Mhm.
biggest charge of it is like a big balloon that you're just like, "I can't hold on to this anymore." Fine, then let it go.
Mhm.
Then let it go like a huge balloon that you just can't hang on to in a windy day or an umbrella that like the wind is gonna take it away from me. Then let it go.
Mhm.
You don't have to hang on to it, but letting it be a part of you in that moment is part of the benefit of what we're introducing you to here.
Mhm. The other potentially helpful thing would be to take breaks where I mean, I've done this myself. It's like, okay, I need a break. God, me, higher levels, all that is, I will come back to this. And so I'll make dates with myself, so to speak. And sometimes if I'm in a situation where I really need to let it rip and it's not appropriate, I make a date with myself later and I acknowledge it. And I say, well, this is not the time and place, and then I keep that date with myself out of my commitment to my evolutionary process and me as the God that I am here in human form. So there's all kinds of tricks we can do. Back in the day, we used to have people sit with us. It's like, hey, will you sit with me? I got to feel this stuff and I just need some support and hand me Kleenexes or, you know, get a few pillows or, whatever. So there's a lot of different things we can do to support and really love ourselves for where we are and what we're feeling. And that's important too, like that reverence that we can have for ourselves and that compassion.
Mm. There are so many healthy ways to let anger be real and flow through us and then let go of it. And there may be little tinges of it where it's the idea of anger, but it's not so emotionally charged. There's another strategy that I found works really well in my community, and that's I love this metaphor of pots on the stove, like a really nice kind of 6 or 8 burner kind of stove. And there's the little burner, and then there's the bigger burners, and you have this really perfect little saucepan, and it's got a perfectly sized lid that just keeps it all intact. And you let your angers be in that tiny little pot, and let it be whatever you need to be in there with a really great lid so that that anger doesn't spill over into everything else in your life and
Mhm.
everything else that you are. Because anger, also sadness, grief can be overwhelming.
Mhm.
So, this metaphor of that perfect little saucepan for it is just like, I'm going to let you be all in here and I'm going to let you be really real.
Mhm.
But I love myself enough and I love life enough and I love the source energy I am enough to not let you be everything that I am and everything that I see and everything that I feel.
Beautiful. Yeah, then there's the more traditional ones about doing a good run, not
Mm,
over physicalizing or exercising, but in that way where I can feel that fire running through my body and let it
mm,
release that way, especially if it's like cellularly stuck,
mm.
right? And then there's the old favorite journaling and there's a prayer I've used around emotions, and I will share it here. It's short.
Yeah, do.
It's God or whatever you want to call source. If I need to feel this, help me feel it. And if I don't, please take it from me.
Mm. It's so beautiful. It's interesting because as you're saying that, I almost feel like there was this tension in my jaw that was sort of like carried away from me. I
Mm,
feel like we all have physical parts of our body. We each have our own physical parts of our body where we may kind of store stuff. And I guess for me, there's something in that jaw related to it. I'll pretend and swile through it. You know what I mean? I'm really mad at you. Might be shoulders. It might be digestion. It might be your gut. It could be anything. Let it all be addressed. with this process and repeat this entire podcast as needed.
Yes.
Yeah, there might be layers of it that kind of you
Oh,
let go of.
I just want to send and hold such love for people and just kind of reiterate that people's essence
Mm.
can dissolve all of this with such grace.
Even your anger is loved and even lovely because source energy has that much love that we have to offer ourselves.
Yes. Mm.
Mm.
I think that's an absolutely beautiful sentiment to end on.
Mm. Good. That was a big one, Janet. Thank you
Yes.
for that.
Thank you. And thank everybody. I can just feel everybody. We just like we're more here, I want to say. Like
So
even in
good.
this earthly realm, which I love. Yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you, Janet. I'm glad we did this one today.
Yeah, me too. Thanks everybody. And please comment, like, share, all that. Thank you for all of it. Thank you for being the light that you are. And we hope to see you next time.
Thank you. Thank you for liking. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for commenting. We'll be happy to respond and engage with you. We'd love to hear your experiences with this. If you had a certain breakthrough and you want to share it in the comment section or in a reply, if you got this via the newsletter first, please, we'd love to hear from you. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you, Jill.
Thank you, Janet. Love you.
Love you too. All right, let me find the stop button on the recorder and there we go. Thanks everybody. Much love.